This will be the recorded description of the job called McCannF Guardian. This was a defamation case brought against the Guardian newspaper by the owners of a fishing boat that operated out of Southern Ireland when the Guardian published an article about how foreign fishermen were mistreated and treated like slave labor by certain fishing vessels in Ireland. And our job was, we were hired by the Guardian to produce some graphics to help prove that the information they published in their article was true and accurate, and that the owners of the fishing vessel really were guilty of the human rights violation and human trafficking that was going on, and regarding their treatment of people they'd import from other countries and basically force into slave labor as fishermen. The particular case that Guardian published was about this man named Demie from the Philippines, and his sort of misadventures and troubles that when he accepted a job from this company, and they flew him from his hometown here in the Philippines and got him into Ireland and basically snuck him down to another port and put him on a fishing boat, and he was pretty much trapped, and he was ended up forced into working long hours and got sick, and his case finally came to light, and the Guardian published that information. So we produced three kinds of graphics. One was just a detail of the long trip that he was required to take to get to his job, where he thought he would have a reasonable fishing job, and how he got kind of trapped into something that was more like slave labor. So we did three graphics, one that detailed his travels, one that detailed took a sketch of the boat and what give a background for him to describe how small the boat was and what the poor conditions were on the boat, and then some details of the fishing trips that were recorded on the logs of the fishing boat that really documented the extreme hours and little rest that the crew experienced. So first graphic was this PowerPoint that set an overview for the picture. It's a long trip from his hometown in the Philippines to Crosshaven, Ireland. Broke it down by detail, pointing out this took days to accomplish, and he took a little local bus from his hometown up to a nearby city, and from that city took the regular transit van to the airport in the southern Philippines, and from there flew on the same day up to the international airport in Manila. Another 760 kilometers. Then from Manila, a really long flight to London Heathrow. And from London Heathrow, they flew him to Dublin, Ireland, where he thought his destination was. He assumed his fishing vessel would be in to Belfast. And when he got there, they got there a little before midnight. They put him in a car and drove him all the way down to southern Ireland to Crosshaven, where the boat really was. So he had no idea where he was going and what the situation was. So it's the sort of the beginning of the deception for this guy. The some of the trip was, it was long and involved, and I think it was they were sneaking him into the country under false pretenses, so that he probably wasn't really well documented, and their abuses of him wouldn't go very well noticed. So stage one of this was long travels and some sneaky ways to get him into the country and to set the stage for these harsh fishing conditions. The second one was a little bit about the fishing boat. These are small boats. They're fishing for all sorts of kinds of fish in the North Atlantic and between Ireland and England. And this was an old boat. It's built in 1988 and been named under a couple different names. he remembered the boat based on this drawing. So he kind of used this as we used this as a source to fill out the inside diagram of the boat. We didn't have any manufacturer's diagrams, didn't have any other data other than external pictures of it and Mr. Omol's sketch. So kind of a way to break this out, and he could use this, and the marine experts and the witnesses could use this to talk about. This is a little boat, cramped crew quarters down in the very lower decks, one toilet and lots of work areas and fish storage. It's not a nice place, and it's a tiny place to be cramped up in a little 163-ton vessel for the crazy long hours that we're going to see about, are going to witness here next. So the final graphic, and the one that seemed to be the most useful for our client, was to take the logbooks that the boats were required to fill out and to plot the time and distances, or the time and locations of all the fishing areas they went to. We made extensive use of the ArcGIS program to plot the international fishing areas. Of course, the entire ocean is marked up into a grid where every fishing boat has to record the time they spend in that area, how much fishing they do in that area, and the types of fish that they catch in that area. So these arrows and yellow blocks detail the locations of their fishing trips and the return and departure ports on southern Ireland that they went to. So this was a summary of 10 trips that we're going to look at in a little bit more detail. Initial breakdown of this was that we would take a single trip and plot it out in some detail. We'll bring up a timeline on the bottom showing the hours that are recorded in the logbook for hours of transit time while they're sailing, and hours of fishing time, and in between time. So in this particular trip, they left from Crosshaven and went to area 31E1, which was several hours, 3.5 hours of transit time to get there. And then once they're in that block, they fish for 12 hours. Now, we don't have exact GPS plots of where they were moving within this area, but they record the time in it and the quantity of fish they captured. So once they arrived, they begin fishing for 12 hours and stop at 2100 and take a little bit of a break and begin shortly after midnight the next day, fish for 20 hours straight, a few hours break. Next day, start after midnight and go 20 hours for on the third day. On the fourth day, they again start 15 minutes after midnight, fish for 14 hours, and then they start steaming back toward Kinsale to arrive there early in the morning. So on trip number 1, the summary is they spent 66 hours fishing and 94 and a half hours at sea. We plotted then the rest of those fishing trips without going line by line. We just put the summaries in, but trip 2 was a much longer trip. They went way up out in the Atlantic, 79 hours of fishing and 200 hours of steaming, with little off time for the crew, because during transit times they're expected to be maintaining equipment and mending nets and processing fish and all of the other associated chores that they've got to do in addition to doing their own cooking. The third trip was a shorter one over near England, and spent a couple days out there. The thing that we discovered as we plotted this, that there were discrepancies in the logbooks, and we noted them here in yellow. There was conflicting entries for when did they quit fishing. I mean, it's only a half an hour here or an hour there, but it turned out to be useful for the attorneys to point out that these logbooks weren't ultimately accurate, and we started finding more of those conflicting entries as we went on. So trip 3, trip 4, again pointing out that just sometimes 20 hours a day of fishing with, maybe 3 hours between times that were woefully insufficient for providing rest for the crew. This one had a bigger conflicting entry for fishing hours. They said they either fished 20 hours or maybe they stopped at noon. We don't really know. The attorneys really liked the fact that we could find some holes in the plaintiff's data, and I think they were able to get some good mileage out of this. So we plotted it all using the ArcGIS program because we had data sources that showed the international fishing areas, and the logbooks gave us times and ports to plot all this from. So it gave us a good background to point out that there's way too much working time expected for the time you're at sea, and then when they even return to port, the workers can't get off the boat without permissions. They don't necessarily have money to spend. The fishermen, the fishing boat owners give them a prepaid cell phone that they can call their family on, but of course in ports they got poor internet connections, and the poor guys are really isolated. And our the subject of this investigation then eventually got ill from these long hours and overwork, and they had to drop him off at one of the ports in Southern Ireland. And following that, his case came to light, and the Guardian picked it up to publish the poor treatment of these guys that get roped into doing this. So that was the end of McCannF Guardian.